Tony Afrati, BTF Tony, is horrified of heights. And I think he was in Hong Kong or something, and they were rappelling. They were doing like 1,000-foot rappel, like off of a 50 or 80 or 100-story building.
Yeah.
And he said he was just like absolutely horrified, but he would just rather die. He was like, I truly believed I was going to die. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to die. Yeah. I'm just going to do this thing. And so you're in your first platoon, and it sounds like, and you were telling me earlier about like a little bit of arrogance, little cockiness that you had.
Yeah.
How'd that work out for you?
Yeah. I don't know. Like if you were an outside observer, you would probably have said definitely there's some ego there as far as just how I carried myself. I don't think I really treated anybody ever disrespectfully or anything like that. But I was pretty good as for a new guy. My chief gave me a lot of faith, allowed me to run a lot of things during training. My platoon commander did the same thing. So, I was a good shot. I was in good shape. I was making good calls. At least I think I had the respect of the guys in my platoon, and I let some of that get to me as far as my ego. Mm-hmm. And my platoon chief was always a guy that was going to be in my corner, was always going to encourage me, but also a guy that's going to let you know if you're stepping out of line.
This is Dave, right?
Yeah, this is Dave. Yeah. So, we get through workup, and I know he sees it. We've had some conversations where he's, made me aware of it. But nothing that's going to...
No hanging offenses.
No hanging offenses, nothing like that. Just like, hey, things to be cognizant of. So we get through training, we deploy, 11 months in Afghanistan. Again, I got to run a whole lot of stuff. I'm working with different units. I'm running different operations. So the confidence and cocky level are probably starting to blur a little bit. So I find out on that tour that I'm going to get to go and do my platoon commander tour next, which is not normal at the time. Usually, as a new guy officer, you've got to go and do your new guy tour, and then you go do what's called the disassociated tour, where you're going to go some other command that's probably not necessarily in the SEALs. Maybe it's a boat team, maybe it's administrative or an operational position in a staff. But the theory is you get a breadth of experience, you see something else, you get a little bit more seniority, and then you come back and do your platoon commander tour. I was fortunate enough to go right from my squad commander to my platoon commander. So I'm sure this was Dave's way of telling me, you've got a couple things you need to work on as you're getting prepared to step into this platoon commander role. Because as a squad commander with a platoon commander and a platoon chief there to kind of keep me in check a little bit, but also, there was some mistakes that I made overseas, probably from overconfidence, cockiness, and they helped me out with it. So I think it was his way of saying,
give me an example of a mistake.
Working with different partner units, probably trying to take a little bit too much charge of stuff, and then they'd get some phone calls about stuff, and then instead of being like, hey man, what the heck, they just be like, hey, let's talk through this. Think about it from their perspective. They've been here for X amount of months, you roll up, and I'm not treating people person to person bad, but it was just kind of this thing of, hey, we're the SEAL team's here, you guys are supporting us, this is what we need, that type of thing.
You're a little bit of that guy.
A little bit of that guy. Yeah, from time to time, a little bit of that guy. So deployment's over with. We were very north in Afghanistan, like very northern Afghanistan. The biggest base, our home base, was Mazar-e-Sharif, which is in northern Afghanistan. It's a big air base, but we were 350 miles north of that. But that's where we have to go to redeploy. So we go down there.
You were doing VSO, right?
VSO, yeah, the Village Stability Operations piece, which was great time. And we come back there to redeploy. We end up having to stay there for 2 weeks because the bird got delayed, so we have time. And there's Mazar-e-Sharif is big airstrip, and then you've got the American side on one side of the airstrip, and then you had German side on the other side. American side, was a total dump. Nothing was improved. Nothing was, it was just gravel floors basically. The Germans, I don't know if they inherited this base or they just built it up, but it was a nice base. It had restaurants. It had all kinds of other stuff. So almost once a day, we'd all go across to the German side, get some food. We were on one of these trips. It was him, myself, and two of the older guys in the truck driving over there to get some food. Dave, okay, my platoon chief, in the truck with me. He's driving. I'm sitting there. You're spent 11 months together deployed, and then 18 months training before that. You've talked about literally everything you could talk about at this point in time. So we were talking about superhero because I think like the first run of Marvel movies had just started to come out, and we had watched some at the base. So Dave's like, hey, if you could be any superhero, what would you be? And instantly I was like, Batman. Because Batman, it's awesome. I always want to be Batman. And he doesn't even look at me. He just says, you couldn't be Batman. I'm like, well, why not? And he goes, Batman wears a mask, and you would need people to know who was doing the heroic deeds. Ooh. Yeah. Yeah. Ooh. Damn, yeah, that was a gut punch. I think it was a very well-deserved gut punch, but to me, that was his way of just politely giving me a little thump upside the head and setting me up for success, saying, you're about to be a platoon commander, and you've got some things that you have to work on. Like, it was a privilege to be given the platoon commander spot, which he knows. So I think he was just telling me, check yourself before you go into that spot. But I'll tell you what, it probably made more of an impact on me than anything else that he could have said, just based on how he responded to that. Like, it got my attention. Mm-hmm. And I definitely, had a lot to think about, and I definitely made a change after that, for sure.
One thing I definitely realized, so you've heard the story of my second platoon where we fired our platoon commander. We had a mutiny, and the great guy, Delta Charlie, came in to take over. What I realized in that platoon was that, and I used to teach this to the young junior officers, you're gonna get the credit. You don't need to make everyone know that you could, because when you're the platoon commander, when the platoon does well, everyone's gonna look and go, hey, good job. Like, good job with your platoon. It's your platoon, good job. And when you do bad, everyone's gonna look at you and they're gonna say, hey, what's wrong with your platoon? So you can take all those insecurities you have that no one's gonna notice how awesome you are, and you can just settle them down. Because you're de facto the person in charge. You don't need to prove anything. That's the context I used to teach junior officers. Like, you don't need to prove that you're in charge of anything. You are de facto in charge. You're literally the platoon commander. And so what happens with a platoon, if it does well, you don't need to tell anyone how awesome you did. If your platoon does well, people know. And it's the same thing with a platoon chief. Like, a good platoon chief, everyone knows, oh yeah, they give that platoon chief gets a ton of credit because it's his platoon. So yeah, the officers tend to do that more because the chiefs kind of know that it's the platoon chief, but the officers they haven't been around long enough to be like, oh, I'm just gonna get credit, and I don't need to tell anyone that I need credit.
Yeah, the thing that even makes it worse is my platoon commander was that guy. They never saw credit for anything. I would watch him actually take ownership for things that was not really on him during training, and he would just sit there and just take it. So I had a great example. Mm-hmm. I had a great example. And I'm making it seem like I was the worst. Like, I was not, but I definitely, it was there.
I remember you were not the worst. You were not at all. Like, you were self-aware enough to at least be recognizing this stuff. A lot of people that they don't even recognize what's happening. Yeah. And that's, like a crazy person doesn't know that they're crazy.
Yeah.
A truly egotistical person, they have no comprehension that that's what's going on. And they rationalize it to themselves. Well, I mean, of course I'm going to be a little bit arrogant. Look at my performance. They say that. And that's their justification and rationalization.
It's not ego if it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.